Picture this. You're finally pulling up to the lakeside cabin your great-uncle left you. U-Haul full of everything you own after a brutal divorce, ready for some peace and quiet in Willow Lake Estates, North Carolina. The loons are calling across the water, pine scent thick in the air, and you're thinking maybe life is finally cutting you a break. Then this blonde tornado in a white Mercedes screeches up, Botox-tight face twisted in outrage. And before you can even set down a box, she's on her phone screaming to 911 that a suspicious black man with a truck is looting the Reginald property. Cops roll in 20 minutes later, lights flashing like it's a felony in progress, while Lorraine Kensington, self-appointed HOA queen for life, stands there clutching her pearls and muttering about protecting property values from the wrong element. Yeah, that's how my nightmare started. And trust me, by the time it ended, that same woman would be the one begging for mercy in front of the entire neighborhood she thought she owned. I'm Leon Brooks, 44, 12 years in Army intelligence before I went private as a cybersecurity consultant. Messy divorce took the Atlanta house. I got the debt, weekend custody of my 2 teens, and this silver lining cabin from great-uncle Reginald. The man bought the 2-acre waterfront slice back in 1968 when nobody wanted it. Classic A-frame. Cedar siding gone silver from decades of lake wind, floor-to-ceiling windows that frame the water like a painting. Needed some love? Sure, but it was solid. Willow Lake Estates, 48 homes scattered around a spring-fed lake. Looked like the kind of place where folks wave and leave doors unlocked. Until I met Lorraine. 53, fresh highlights. Always in tennis whites that cost more than my truck payment. Her husband, Richard, worked at the local credit union and looked permanently exhausted, like he'd been apologizing for her since the wedding. No kids, so the HOA became her baby. Rules for everything. Mailboxes forest green only, grass never over 2 inches. She carried a laser measurer in her glove box. Trash cans hidden, American flags tastefully sized. She'd been president 6 straight years because nobody else wanted the headache. Red flag number 1 I ignored. Day 2 I'm on the deck with coffee, watching mist rise off the water like something out of a postcard, when her Mercedes crunches up the gravel again. She climbs out holding a manila envelope like it's a court summons. "Mr. Brooks," she says, voice dripping artificial sweetness, "we have some concerns about standards." Inside the envelope, 15 alleged violations. Unpermitted dock extension from 1992. Commercial vehicle, my work van, visible from the road. Unsightly generator. Backup solar panels I hadn't even installed yet. Total fines, $3,200. 30 days, Orleans City. I just stared at her. "Ma'am, I moved in yesterday. These things were here when I arrived." She smiled the way people do when they're already imagining your departure. Previous owner's negligence doesn't excuse current owner's responsibility. It's all in the covenants. Welcome to Willow Lake. Then she clicked away on her designer heels, leaving the smell of expensive perfume mixing with pine like some toxic perfume commercial. That afternoon, I drove to the county clerk's office. Every single violation was either permitted decades ago or completely fabricated. The dock? Grandfathered. The van? Parked on my own damn driveway. But bullies don't count on you reading the fine print. I started keeping records, timestamps, photos, everything. Army habit. Never thought I'd need it against a soccer mom dictator. Neighbors were polite at first. Old Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker next door waved, but their smiles got tight whenever Lorraine's car appeared. The young Park family with 2 little girls seemed friendly until Lorraine paid them a courtesy visit. After that, they hurried their kids inside like I was contagious. Only guy who didn't flinch was old-timer Hank Rivera, lived here since the 70s. He just shook his head and muttered, "That woman's been measuring grass and measuring souls since Reagan was president." Night 1 in Uncle Reginald's old bedroom. Listening to water lap the dock, I realized this wasn't about rules. This was about me existing in her curated fantasy. She had no clue who she just poked. Lorraine wasn't finished warming up. Day 3, county building inspector shows up unannounced. Got a complaint about commercial activity at this address. I showed him my empire, laptop on the kitchen table, printer, coffee mug. Guy looked embarrassed. "Between us," he whispered, "somebody's been filing complaints about this property for years. Even harassed your uncle." That stopped me cold. I crawled under the cabin that night with a flashlight. Found 3 banker boxes of paperwork. 15 years of certified letters, threats, violation notices, all signed with Lorraine Kensington's perfect cursive. I called my buddy Derek, the lawyer in Raleigh. Leon, your HOA hasn't filed state paperwork since 2020. They're legally dead. Every fine since then is toilet paper. My heart started hammering. Uncle Reginald had saved every scrap because he knew someday somebody would need the ammo. That evening I grilled fresh bass off the dock, frogs singing backup, when Mr. Whitaker shuffled over with a plate of Dorothy's chocolate chip cookies. She pulled the same stunt on the Park family last year, he whispered. Complained about the kids' trampoline. Then her real estate office sent a lowball offer to help them relocate. The puzzle snapped together. This wasn't standards. This was systematic harassment so Lorraine could flip houses cheap through her agency, Lakeside Luxury Realty. Uncle Reginald had figured it out and documented every family she'd squeezed out. I smiled into the dark. Cornered animals get desperate. But so do veterans who've seen worse than a measuring tape tyrant. Lorraine's next move was pure Facebook warfare. She posted in the neighborhood group concerns about certain new residents' activities impacting safety and values. Vague enough for plausible deniability, specific enough to make people side-eye my van. 3 likes from brand new accounts. Amateur. I screenshot, traced the profiles, started my own file thicker than her Botox budget. Then the real gut punch. My biggest client, a regional hospital network, calls. Leon, we received an anonymous tip about licensing issues and possible data security lapses. 3 more clients the same day. My livelihood, the one keeping child support paid and lights on, suddenly on ice. I sat on the deck that night listening to a beaver slap the water and made a decision. 2 can play anonymous. I filed a formal complaint with the North Carolina Real Estate Commission citing harassment and aggressive solicitation tactics. Then I waited. Cornered Karens always overplay their hand. The emergency HOA meeting was called for that Friday at the community center, the one that smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. 12 residents showed. Lorraine stood at the folding table like she was addressing Congress. We need to discuss security concerns with our newest resident, she said, eyes lasering me. Commercial traffic, unknown visitors, potential decline in values. Each lie delivered with the sincerity of a televangelist. I stood slowly, phone in hand. Before we talk security, let's talk legality. This HOA hasn't filed required state documents since 2020. You have zero authority to fine anyone or enforce rules. I started passing out printouts of the state registry. Gasps rippled. Dorothy Whitaker actually clutched her pearls for real. Lorraine's face cycled through 5 shades of rage. This is a minor clerical oversight. Then Richard Kensington cleared his throat from the back row. Lorraine, honey, didn't you say you handled those filings? Every head swiveled. Richard looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Folks, I'm sorry. My wife has been enthusiastic. I had no idea the paperwork lapsed. Lorraine's Botox mask cracked. For the first time, she looked small. After the meeting dissolved in awkward murmurs, Richard caught me in the parking lot under the honeysuckle-scented night air. She's not evil, Leon. She's terrified. Investments tanked. Properties not selling. Mortgage 2 months behind. She sees your cabin as the lifeline. The real twist landed like a quiet bomb. Lorraine wasn't drunk on power. She was drowning in debt and using the HOA like a crowbar to pry houses loose. I walked down to the dock afterward, moonlight turning the lake to liquid silver. Somewhere an owl called. Uncle Reginald used to say the lake talks if you listen. Tonight it was telling me Lorraine's house of cards was already leaning. I just needed to give gravity a little help. The next morning I filed the real estate complaint with every scrap of evidence, screenshots, timestamps, client statements. Then I sat back. Desperate people always escalate. Sure enough, 6 a.m. Diesel rumble in my driveway. A guy in coveralls is pounding no trespassing signs into what he thinks is common ground. I stroll out barefoot, pine needles cool under my feet. Morning. Mind telling me what you're doing on my property? Guy checks his map, face drops. Lady in the fancy car said this was HOA land. I show him my survey. He's standing 20 feet inside my boundary line. Signs come up faster than they went down. That afternoon at the county courthouse, the clerk, a woman who'd clearly seen every kind of neighbor war, traced the 1987 easement agreement. Your uncle granted the road access to the community but added a clause, conditional on neighborly relations and respect for property rights. Break the peace, easement can be revoked. Her eyes twinkled over her glasses. Having neighbor trouble, sugar? My pulse kicked up. Lorraine's mansion sat at the dead end of that private road. No easement, no legal access. Her $920,000 property becomes an island overnight. Uncle Reginald, you beautiful paranoid genius. That night the generator I'd filled 3 days earlier ran dry. Security footage showed a dark sedan creeping up at 3:17 a.m., someone tampering, then ghosting. Next morning, thunderstorm knocks power out countywide. Neighbors' backups hum. Mine sits silent, sugar in the tank. Classic sabotage. But 12 years in intelligence teaches contingencies. Hidden fuel stash, quick swap. I'm online while Lorraine probably pictured me cursing in the dark. Petty vandalism followed. Mailbox knocked crooked, newspapers scattered like confetti. I documented everything, filed the sheriff's report with video. Deputy Ramirez, no nonsense and kind-eyed, reviewed the footage. This is escalating fast, Mr. Brooks. You want charges? Not yet. Paper trail first. Mr. Whitaker caught me on the dock again. She missed another mortgage payment. Investments bleeding out. Roger says she's borrowing against their retirement just to stay afloat. The picture sharpened. Lorraine wasn't bullying for sport. She needed quick flips to service debt, and my cabin was next on her list. The final puzzle piece came from Uncle Reginald's old recipe box. Cleaning the pantry, I knocked it over, and a sealed envelope tumbled out. His shaky handwriting. For whoever comes after me. Inside, a letter and directions to a metal box under the bedroom closet floorboard. Photographs, bank records, a hand-drawn map with red X's over 5 houses she'd terrorized into selling cheap to her own agency. Bank statements showed her leverage to the eyeballs, $52,000 in back taxes alone. A desperate offer letter to Uncle Reginald for $195,000 on a $430,000 property. The woman had turned the HOA into a personal foreclosure machine. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. We need to talk. Rustic diner off Highway 17. Come alone. Richard. 30 minutes later, I slid into a cracked vinyl booth across from a man who looked like he hadn't slept since Clinton was president. She's talking about accidental damage, he whispered, hands shaking around his coffee. Insurance claims, contractors who specialize in making places unlivable. Leon, she's scared enough to do something stupid. I leaned in. Richard, there's a way out for both of you. The easement revocation paperwork is ready. 30-day notice and her house becomes landlocked. But if she stops, completely, the easement stays. Your home, her license, everybody walks away breathing. He looked at me like I'd offered water in the desert. Outside, thunder rolled. Storm coming. But for the first time, I wasn't the one who needed an umbrella. The war room was Uncle Reginald's dining table buried under surveys, bank records, and enough coffee to float a battleship. Derek drove up from Raleigh with his laptop and a grin that said he smelled blood in the water. That easement clause is beautiful. One filing and her mansion is worthless. Mr. Whitaker brought surveying notes from the 80s proving the road strip was never deeded to the HOA. Dorothy arrived with casseroles and her own secret folder of every illegal fee notice she'd saved for years, over $28,000 collected without authority. Even Hank Rivera showed up with reinforced locks and motion cameras. Your uncle gave me my first real job, he rumbled. Time to return the favor. Our plan wasn't revenge. It was mutually assured de-escalation. Stop the harassment. Admit the HOA was legally dead. Transition to a voluntary association with term limits and real elections. In return, easement stays, no felony charges, everybody keeps their dignity. But if she doubled down, we dropped the nuclear option. Lorraine's final desperation hit like a freight train. Fake property management company filed a $19,000 lien on my cabin overnight. Social media exploded with anonymous posts about suspicious activity and future commercial development. Then 3:47 a.m. Sheriff's deputies, bomb squad, the works. because an anonymous tip claimed I was a disturbed veteran stockpiling weapons. 3 hours of polite but thorough searching later, they found nothing but my legal handgun and a lot of embarrassment. Deputy Ramirez pulled me aside. This caller knew details only someone with serious access could get. We're treating it as felony false report. That same day, my last major client paused our contract over reputational concerns. 15 years of reputation torched by one burner phone call. But every lie, every sabotage, every smear was now time-stamped evidence for a federal harassment case Derek said could put her away for years. The monthly HOA meeting on October 18th became legend. Parking lot packed. 43 people crammed into a room built for 20. Lorraine strode in trying to look regal, but her hands trembled. She opened with a proposal for a $6,000 emergency assessment to fund security against certain threats. The room erupted. Then I stood. As of this morning, I filed revocation of the road easement serving your property, Lorraine. 30 days, and you'll have no legal access. Your house becomes landlocked. Dead silence except for the buzzing fluorescents. Derek laid out the documents. Dorothy presented 15 years of illegal fees. The Park family stood and described years of threats over their kids' basketball hoop. One by one, residents rose, voices shaking at first, then stronger, sharing stories of intimidation and lowball offers. Richard Kensington walked to the front carrying a cardboard box like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I have bank records, emails, payment stubs to fake management companies, he said quietly. My wife has been running an extortion scheme for years. I can't watch her destroy good people anymore. Lorraine's face collapsed. Richard, how could you? Deputy Ramirez stepped forward with cuffs. I raised my hand. Actually, Deputy, I'd like to offer an alternative. I looked straight at Lorraine, not a monster, just a desperate woman who'd let fear turn her into one. Public apology to the community. Help us form a legitimate voluntary association with real elections. Drop every action against me and others. In return, the easement stays, no criminal charges, and you walk away with your freedom and whatever dignity remains. The room held its breath. Lorraine stared at the sea of faces that once feared her and now only pitted her. Her shoulders slumped. She signed the agreement with shaking hands. 6 months later, I sit on the same deck watching sunrise paint the lake gold. Kids are fishing with Mr. Whitaker. Jasmine's watercolors of the loons hang in the living room. The new voluntary association meets monthly, potlucks, not power trips. Property values actually rose once fear left the neighborhood. Lorraine and Richard moved to Tennessee. Last I heard, she's in therapy and working part-time at a garden center. Sometimes desperation reveals who we really are. Sometimes mercy gives us a chance to become someone better. The lake is talking again tonight. Loons calling, kids laughing, wind in the pines. This is what community sounds like when nobody's measuring souls with a laser tape. So tell me in the comments, was Lorraine Kensington truly the villain, or just another desperate homeowner crushed by her own bad choices? Was I right to offer mercy, or should I have landlocked her mansion and let the banks finish the job? Drop your verdict below. Who was really in the wrong here?